Hello all, Rick here today with another Star Trek Bestiary. This video is one of the largest creatures I've covered, and for that matter, one of the largest encountered by Starfleet. Additionally, if this video is a little short, it's because I'm in the midst of moving house, and this is not the one I had planned. Short notice. Anyway. In 2268, the USS Enterprise was investigating the loss of both an entire planet and the all-Vulcan USS Intrepid in the Gamma 7A system. As they closed in on the system from Starbase 6, they discovered a void in space, an area of seeming darkness that was impenetrable to sensors reading only as negative energy. This dark zone also acted to interfere with communication systems, even by being in its proximity, preventing both probe telemetry and signals from Starfleet reaching the Enterprise. Once they braved the field, they found at its centre a giant single-celled organism, termed the Space Amoeba, the only one encountered by the Federation to date, although it was preparing to divide. This creature was an estimated 11,000 miles in diameter, which for comparison is 39% larger than the Earth, quite capable of engulfing a planet it seems, not that it would need to. The creature seemed to lack any sentience or signs of higher brain function, on account of it not having a brain. The field of negative energy it emanated was a strange phenomenon that in effect acted to neutralize energy and was dangerous to not only the ship systems but organic life. Exactly how it moved through the vacuum of space was unknown. Certainly it didn't move in the same way as regular bacteria with a flagellum, which would serve no purpose in this environment. However, with such a great mass at its disposal, it's entirely possible it simply jettisons some of its internal energy or matter from a vacuole to then propel itself in the opposite direction. It could, however, manipulate the negative energy field to draw objects towards it. It displayed no faster-than-light capabilities, such as warp, although it must have been able to traverse the void with some speed, as it was located beyond the confines of Gamma 7A, the solar system, when the crew met it, having already visited the once-inhabited system. It more or less takes light 5.5 hours to reach Pluto from Sol, so for the Amoeba to clear a system completely, well, it must be travelling at speeds relative to at least a moderate factor of impulse. The mass of the cell was indeed protoplasm, the catch-all term for the jelly mass of a cell, so it was an organic entity. It was made from cytoplasm, possessed a nucleus, and had a full set of over 40 chromosomes. The fact it was classified as an amoeba suggests that it could alter its structure and protoplasm to form pseudopods, temporary appendages to reach out that deal 1d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. Wait, wrong franchise. Pseudopods are generally used for both locomotion, meaningless in space, and for drawing in nutrients. We can see such structures along the edge of the amoeba. What it feeds on is a mystery too. However, traces of debris and waste were found clinging to its outer edges, suggesting that it simply envelops a source of nutrition and dissolves it, consuming the raw energies and any required matter from its acquired food before flushing out the waste. After all, its simple proximity already renders most life forms dead, so it's not like it has to actively hunt. Despite its internal layout and image matching that of a single-celled lifeform, the Space Amoeba is very different in several aspects that are vital to its simple survival in the vacuum of space. Such differences include the massive negative energy generation potential to such an extent that it shrouds the surrounding space in its field. I would suspect this is what provides it some measure of protection against the cosmic background radiation. Additionally, it must consume something other than water and nutrients to survive, as neither of these are exactly plentiful in space. As an amoeba, it technically lacked a cell membrane, yet was impervious to exploding due to the lack of atmosphere, and was referred to having a membrane in several instances anyway. Although its scale would suggest it exerted its own gravitational pull, which probably aided in holding it together. Alongside its negative energy field, it released a substance that could only really be described as anti-life matter by the scientists on the Enterprise. This permeated the field and made for an additional layer of toxicity to life. It's quite possible that these are effectively waste products of whatever the amoeba's conversion process is. After all, it too is alive, and something called anti-life matter is not exactly conducive to health. The Space Amoeba was destroyed in its encounter with the Enterprise, who deployed an antimatter device straight into its nucleus, ending the creature's existence. It was seen as a last-ditch effort to remove a threat that they first tried to understand and study. Thanks to Spock and McCoy, the Federation did at least get a lot of information on this creature, so technically in universe, most of these questions could be answered. In Apocrypha, the game Shattered Universe, which I have a copy of somewhere I think, well, the amoeba was encountered in 2293 in the Mirror Universe too, further towards Romulan space, but also destroyed. The amoeba's origin is still a mystery, whether it evolved to be the way it was or engineered. It could perhaps have been a far smaller creature originally, maybe even a microorganism, judging by its simplicity, that grew to such incomprehensible size. But in that case the question is how? Exposure to some strange energy, a forgotten prank by Q? We have seen one other instance of a microorganism mutating to enter into the macro scale, the aptly named macrovirus, which I've already covered here. Perhaps we are looking at some mutated end result of a similar process, a freak occurrence. Spock postulated it was an extragalactic entity, but he really had little to base that on. The creature was preparing itself for cell division, reproduction when it was destroyed, which would suggest that the creature had reached its maximum mass before mitosis. From here it would have split itself in two, beginning with the nuclei before everything else was split between it and its clone. As no other such life forms have ever been encountered, I see only two possibilities. The rate of reproduction is either so infrequent that it takes centuries, millennia even, to reach the scale needed to divide, or that it came into existence very recently, far sooner than its scale would suggest. If the being suddenly came into existence, however that happened, it might also explain why it was able to descend onto Gamma 7a so suddenly, wiping out billions of lives on the inhabited planets in the system. If this is the case, then it would suggest that the Enterprise narrowly prevented a disaster of literal galactic scale. To be fair, with the exceptional rate of cell division, they certainly did prevent this. Whether it took 100,000 years or 100 days, if left to divide, the resulting amoeba's negative energy field would have surely flooded the galaxy, wiping out all life. In the real world, the largest technical amoebas we have are Xenophiophora, which are technically a single-celled organism that has multiple nuclei and lives on the ocean floor. Species of these have been recorded at 20 centimeters in diameter, although these are pretty much their own category. It does show that simple single-celled life does not always need to be microscopic. However, when we are dealing with something twice the size of some planets, then things get kind of absurd. The protoplasm alone would most likely disseminate in vacuum, eventually, even with its sheer mass, as it lacks a solid enough core to maintain integrity. But then we have the whole concept of its strange energy fields that could probably do who knows what. A big point of its appearance was that it was beyond anything encountered and that they struggled to understand it. Either way, I think this is one of the most fascinating creatures in Trek, mostly because of the scale of the threat it represents and the complete lack of ability to negotiate with it or anything. It has no intelligence, it's just a cell doing what it is biologically programmed to do, but its very presence is quite simply an antithesis to all life. Such a creation has elements of cosmic horror, which I dig, and personally, the implication that there could be more of these things is terrifying. Fortunately, none have been found. For now. I've been Rick. Thanks for watching this breakdown on the giant space amoeba from Star Trek, and I'll see you next time for another lore video, and until then, thanks again, and goodbye. The Xenophino... Xeno... Xenophilophoria